Joe, I want to ask you about a few other kids in state. Illinois showing a lot of interest in Jason Jakstys, 2024 big man out of Yorkville. Illinois comes in with one of his first high major offers here. What kind of development have you seen on him? Because like he's the kind of guy, like if he did develop, you think would be a good compliment to somebody like Murray's, it feels like.
Yeah, and I was a straight shooter with all my in my recruiting service, and I have him as a mid major. I get what people see. I'm actually from Yorkville, but grew up there, and you've seen his development over the years as this late blooming, developing big 6'10". I I see what Illinois sees in him. I look at the past experiments of the Leaves and the Jermaine Hamlins and the flyers you take, and you hope one of them hits. He would not be ready for a while at a Big Ten school. He just has, from a physical standpoint, particularly. But yeah, he this past weekend he started good, kind of fade a little bit. What's interesting, and again, I give credit to Illinois; they do what they want to do, and in terms of, and that's what all college programs should do. But again, usually when a high major offers, a lot follow. Yeah. It just happens. You just saw it this weekend with Angel Ciaravino from Mount Carmel. Finally, one offered, and boom, 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 3 or 4 others followed right away. Jakstys came out this weekend. Still, he's a coveted mid-major guy. Mid-majors would love to have him. I still think he's a developmental piece at the mid-major level. That's going to take some time. But he's a skill big 6'10". He can move. Just physically he's not ready, and the productivity, the consistent production is partly the lack of it to a degree as a result of that lack of physicality and body strength and trying to survive on that circuit when the level rises up. Yeah. But a lot of high majors are doing things differently now, Jeremy. The recruiting model is different. This isn't specifically towards Jakstys in Illinois, but there are 13 scholarships, and you cannot keep 13 players happy nowadays. You just can't. Right. There's a lot of programs that don't want 13. They want, 12. Keep one open. There's the NIL factor. Can you back end that roster with some NIL guys that aren't going to chew up any money? You try to find ones that are, again, like a player like Jakstys, not specifically him, but maybe is okay with the idea of sitting, redshirting, developing, and again, with all those other things, not eating up NIL, not, there's just a puzzle now in recruiting and roster management that is way different than it was just 3 years ago. And I'm not saying that's what Illinois sees. I'm just saying that's the case, and that's how I view a lot of these scholarship situations at the high major level.
No, I've thought, man, could Illinois get back to more in-state recruiting, because those guys might stay around a little bit longer. In developmental pieces, you might have 1 or 2 spots available for that. So I don't disagree with that thought. I want to ask you too. I mean, when your name's Gill, you're in Illinois, you're a pretty good basketball player. A lot of fans are going to notice. And Illinois offered Phoenix Gill last year. Doesn't do the AAU thing, which I find really interesting with Kendall and Phoenix's decision on that, but seemed to have pretty good event at Riverside Brookfield. So what have you made of his development over the past year, Joe?
It's interesting, the AAU thing. And again, I don't think there's a one road or one fit for every kid and family, but it is interesting because I have morphed as an evaluator over the years from being like, I don't know what the percentage would be, 60-40 high school favorable to watch versus now like 70-30 AAU or 60-40 AAU. And now I value getting both of them so much that you miss it when you don't see it. So I'd love to see Phoenix Gill play on the circuit, and because it does it's 2 different animals, right? But there are higher level athletes, there are higher level players that are all on one court together. It's just fact. So he's just been super, super steady. He hasn't had this massive rise. It's just the steady progression. He, the one thing, and I hate when you have to compare to other players, let alone your own father. Uh, he doesn't have that explosiveness, the type of athleticism that Kendall had, but he's probably a little small right now. But again, he's still maturing physically, developing. I think he's getting more athletic each time I see him. I have him right in that mid plus, high minus range on the bubble of becoming a legit high major. And I just think he's a ton of substance to him. And I just think he's not going to be this flashy, eye-opening player, but one that you really, really gravitate towards the more you watch. And so it'll be interesting to see, his rise this because I love the jumps they make, from that classification from when you finish in March till November. And I expect him at St. Ignatius to have that type of a jump, even without that AAU experience.
Feels like substance would be a really high remark by an evaluator, Joe.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about Ty Rogers, we talk about Morez Johnson, not that they don't have other things, but there is a ton of substance to those two kids. And I don't know, every roster is built differently. Every coach has importance of characteristics and attributes, and they say every coach is going to say they want that, right, but every program in the country does not have it.
Joe, I want to ask you about a guy who is transferring out of state but played in state last year, Jeremiah Fears. I saw him, I think, a year ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is the Steph Curry generation." Jeremiah Fears feels like he is a part of that. Just shot maker, playmaker. But what have you seen from his development? Because it seems like Illinois has started to prioritize him.
Same stage. Again, we're comparing family members here, but same stage. I from the day I saw Jeremiah, I've liked Jeremiah every step of the way as a higher level prospect and player than Jeremy. Jeremiah is my cup of tea. He is my type of player, bucket getter, plays with, a pace that I love while also staying in control. And he's a bona fide, legitimate high major. I'd love for him to add another inch, and you get nitpicky with size and stuff, but he's plenty big enough as far as a high major. But yeah, he's electric, and he's been playing up, obviously, an age group at AAU. It's disappointing. I would love to have seen him. He'd be by far away my top ranked prospect in that class if he were still in Illinois. So yeah, he's a no-brainer, high major. I think he's on his way to being a potential, McDonald's All-American, which Jeremy was as well. I just think Jeremiah is a better player, a better prospect, and a higher upside.